Welcome to A1 Storyteller, where truth cuts deeper than fiction and the voices they try to silence come back louder, stronger, unstoppable. Here we don't just tell stories. We uncover battles fought in plain sight. We shine light where shadows hide injustice. We give power back to the people who were counted out, dismissed, forgotten. And tonight, you're about to witness a story that'll shake your soul. A black woman, in a wheelchair, alone, or so they thought. She rolled into a quiet coffee shop for peace but walked into the crosshairs of authority, blinded by bias. They saw her chair, they saw her color, but they never saw her. They didn't see the years she spent in deserts and jungles. Didn't see the blood, the grit, the pain that made her unbreakable. Didn't see the classified missions she led. Didn't see the soldiers who still salute her name in whispers, because what they arrested that day wasn't just a disabled woman. They arrested a ghost from the battlefield, a Delta Force commander, a living weapon. And now she's bringing the war home. This isn't just a story about injustice. It's about reckoning. It's about what happens when the system picks a fight with someone who trained to dismantle systems. And you're about to watch it all unfold. So lock in, stay close, don't blink. Because on A1 Storyteller, we don't just entertain, we awaken. Let's begin. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in downtown Atlanta. The streets were buzzing with life, from the aroma of fresh bagels at corner shops to the distant rhythm of jazz flowing out of a record store. But inside Latte and Soul, a locally owned coffee shop run by a black couple named Terrence and Myra, the energy was different, calm, respectful, soulful. At a corner table near the window sat a black woman in a sleek black wheelchair. Her posture was regal, her face calm but alert. Her name was Commander Celeste Monroe, though no one here knew that. To them, she was just a quiet, observant woman in her mid-40s who ordered a black coffee and sat for an hour reading newspapers. She wore a leather jacket, black jeans, and military-grade boots. Her hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her hands, though scarred, moved with the practiced precision of someone who had seen war and survived it. Celeste didn't seek attention, but she noticed everything. Behind the counter, Myra smiled as she filled an order. "Celeste, you need a refill, baby?" Celeste gave her a soft nod. "Appreciate you." That's when the storm walked in. Two white officers, Officer Trent Mallory and Officer Kyle Haskins, entered the shop. Their presence shifted the room's energy instantly. They walked with the entitled swagger of men who rarely heard the word no. "Coffee shop's been getting reports of loitering," Officer Mallory said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Myra raised her eyebrows. "Reports from who? We haven't called anything in." Mallory ignored her and looked straight at Celeste. "You! We've gotten complaints. Mind telling me what you're doing here?" Celeste folded her paper and met his eyes without flinching. "Drinking coffee," Haskins sneered. "You got ID?" Celeste calmly pulled out her wallet and slid it across the table. Her driver's license was in order, her veteran card too. The officers didn't care. "This license says you're Celeste Monroe," Mallory muttered. "That's me," she replied coolly. Haskins leaned down. "Well, you've been here a while. Makes people nervous when someone just sits in a coffee shop, staring out the window." Celeste smirked. "You mean, makes you nervous?" The room fell silent. Myra stopped pouring coffee. A man on his laptop looked up, sensing tension. "You being smart?" Mallory growled. "No," Celeste replied. "I'm being direct." Mallory exchanged a look with Haskins, who muttered something under his breath. Then, without warning, Mallory reached for her arm. "Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to come with us." Celeste's voice was cold steel. "Don't touch me." "You're resisting?" "No, I'm advising." But they didn't listen. Haskins grabbed her wheelchair. Mallory reached for cuffs. That's when Celeste moved. Fast, fluid, like water in motion. She twisted her body, hooked Mallory's wrist with a single motion, and flipped his hand in a controlled lock. The man yelped. In the blink of an eye, Haskins was on the floor, his foot swept out from under him by Celeste's boot. She didn't stand. She didn't have to. "Get off me!" Mallory growled, red-faced. Celeste released him, letting him stumble back. The whole coffee shop was frozen, stunned. "I served this country for 22 years, Celeste said calmly, "and I don't owe you a damn explanation." Mallory and Haskins, enraged and humiliated, called for backup. They didn't realize what they had just stepped into. Within minutes of the scuffle, the sound of sirens pierced the morning calm. 3 more squad cars screeched to a halt outside Latte and Soul. Officers poured out, some with tasers drawn, others barking commands. People on the street began recording. The tension was thick. Celeste sat motionless, hands resting on the arms of her wheelchair, her face unreadable. Mallory pointed at her like a man who'd just been embarrassed at a high school reunion. "She's combative. Assaulted an officer. Take her in." The senior officer among the backup, Sergeant Miller, approached with raised eyebrows. "This woman in a wheelchair assaulted 2 trained officers?" Mallory growled. "Don't let the chair fool you. She's dangerous." Miller knelt by Celeste. "Ma'am, you mind telling me your side of this?" Celeste handed over her ID again, this time also giving him a small, laminated card with gold trim. His eyes widened. It was a Department of Defense clearance card, something you don't get from serving at a desk. His tone shifted instantly. "Commander Monroe?" Celeste nodded once. Miller stood and turned to Mallory. "You had no idea who you were arresting, did you?" Mallory frowned. "She didn't comply. She's a retired Delta Force commander. That card she just gave me? That's a Tier 1 clearance marker, highest level security. You just cuffed a war hero who probably has more confirmed kills than you have parking tickets." Gasps rippled across the coffee shop. Miller turned back to Celeste. "Ma'am, I apologize deeply. I'm going to call this in. This should have never happened." Celeste's face remained calm, but her voice was razor-sharp. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to everyone who's ever sat where I'm sitting now and didn't have the kind of credentials that make people listen." Despite Sergeant Miller's protests, Mallory insisted that protocol required her to be booked. "I don't care who she is. She resisted. She laid hands on an officer. She defended herself," Miller snapped, but it was too late. The department's internal politics had kicked in. Celeste was taken downtown. She didn't resist. Not because she was afraid, but because she had a bigger plan. As they wheeled her through the precinct, the other officers stared, some in confusion, others with a hint of respect as whispers spread. She was fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell. Across from her sat a young black woman, no older than 22, eyes swollen from crying. Celeste spoke first. "What they got you in for?" The girl sniffled. "I was walking home from my cousin's house. They said I fit a description." Celeste nodded slowly. "Of course they did. What about you?" Celeste smiled faintly. Being underestimated? In the shadows of the city, not everyone had forgotten Celeste Monroe. Somewhere across town, inside a secure veteran center, a man named Marcus Steele Richardson sat reading when his phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message. "Commander Monroe, arrested, Atlanta PD." His heart froze. Marcus had served under her in Afghanistan. She'd pulled him out of a flaming Humvee and carried him half a mile under sniper fire. To him and many others, Celeste wasn't just a commander, she was legend. He picked up a burner phone and made 2 calls, one to a retired JAG officer, the other to a man known only as Warden, a Black Ops tech genius who owed Celeste his life. Word spread like wildfire. By nightfall, a quiet storm was building. Back at the precinct, Lieutenant Grace Randall walked into the commander's office and slammed a file on the desk. "I just got off the phone with the Pentagon," she said sharply. "You arrested who?" Captain Donnelly looked confused. "Some loitering suspect?" She's a decorated Delta Force commander, served in 3 continents, led Black Ops no one in this building would even be cleared to know about. She trained SEALs, wrote manuals still in use. She was recruited by the CIA post-retirement. And you've got her locked up on charges of loitering and resisting arrest? Silence fell. You realize, Randall continued, her voice rising, if word gets out, you're not just looking at a civil lawsuit. You're looking at a congressional investigation and national disgrace. The phone started ringing. News outlets had picked up the video of Celeste being arrested. The headline read, "Veteran in wheelchair manhandled by Atlanta PD. Who is Celeste Monroe?" Celeste was released that evening without a word of apology, but she didn't leave quietly. As she rolled out of the station, she passed Mallory and Haskins, both looking smug. She stopped. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, "do you know what a debriefing is?" They blinked. "Because tomorrow morning, you'll both be undergoing one, led by a federal investigator. You'll answer for today, and not just to me, but to a room full of people who've seen the war and lived through hell. People who don't care about your ego." "You threatening us?" Mallory snapped. "No," Celeste said, locking eyes. "I'm informing you." She left the precinct to the sound of her lawyer's car pulling up. The next morning, City Hall was a hive of media frenzy. Cameras clicked, reporters jostled for position. On the podium stood attorney Camille Royce, a sharp-dressed black woman with a reputation for dismantling corrupt police departments one lawsuit at a time. Behind her sat Celeste, flanked by veterans, community leaders, and a few shadowy figures in dark suits. Clearly federal. Camille stepped up to the mic. "Yesterday, my client, Commander Celeste Monroe, retired Delta Force operative, war hero, and public servant, was wrongfully detained by officers of the Atlanta Police Department while doing what every citizen should have the right to do. Enjoying a cup of coffee." The reporters buzzed. "This is not just about one woman in a wheelchair. It's about a system that consistently targets, degrades, and abuses black people, disabled or not. But what makes this case different? They picked the wrong woman. They picked a soldier who's taken down terrorist cells in the Middle East. They picked a strategist who's led operations classified above top secret. And now she's going to lead a different kind of operation right here." That was Celeste's cue. She rolled forward to the mic. Her voice was steady. "For 22 years, I fought for this country abroad. Now I fight for it here. I didn't come back broken. I came back built differently. And I'm not going anywhere." In the days that followed, the Atlanta PD found itself under siege, not by protests alone, but by paperwork, federal requests, audits, and legal demands. Officer Mallory and Officer Haskins were suspended pending investigation, but Celeste wasn't finished. She met with Mayor Terrence Green, a progressive-minded politician trying to save face. She didn't come with emotion, she came with strategy. "I want access," she said bluntly. "I want oversight authority into the precinct that arrested me, not just on my case, on every civilian complaint in the last 5 years." Green hesitated. "That's a big ask." Celeste stared him down. "You owe this city better. I'm offering you help. Say no, and I go national with what I know." He folded. A week later, Celeste was sitting in an internal affairs review room with a digital caseboard full of patterns, racial bias in arrests, complaints swept under the rug, officers rotated instead of punished. One name kept popping up: Captain Darrell Voss, the real puppeteer, the one who promoted Mallory, the one whose badge number appeared on dozens of buried misconduct forms. Celeste leaned back, staring at the board. "We've got our villain," she said quietly. "Enter Reaper Squad." Not a formal group, but a quiet brotherhood of ex-operatives Celeste had worked with during her Black Ops years. Marcus Steele Richardson, Natalia Chen, the surveillance guru, Doc Jefferson, their medic-turned-legal consultant, and Andre, a.k.a. Blink, the fastest hands in digital infiltration. They set up shop in a safe house on the outskirts of the city. Celeste wheeled in, looked around at her crew, and got right to business. We've all fought terrorists, cartels, and warlords, but today's enemy wears a badge and hides behind bureaucracy. They dug into Voss's life. Hidden real estate, unreported income, sudden wealth. Link found off the books cash flowing into a security consultancy Voss's cousin ran, funded with city money. Natalia hacked into precinct comms, pulling archived conversations. Voss's voice crackled over speakers. I don't care what the report says. If they're loitering and they're black, book 'em. No exceptions. The room went silent. Steele clenched his jaw. He's been hunting us on our own soil, Celeste nodded. Then let's hunt back. Celeste knew the law couldn't always work fast, so she planned something else, a public sting. She leaked a fake document through an anonymous tip to APD's internal affairs, pretending she'd uncovered a link between Voss and a known gang laundering money through fake businesses. She knew Voss would panic and try to cover his tracks. What he didn't know was that the safe house had been rigged with surveillance drones. As he made calls, ordered files destroyed, even threatened junior officers, everything was being recorded. The final nail? He ordered a hit on Celeste through a corrupt bail bondsman with cartel ties. They had it all on video. Camille Royce smiled as she reviewed the footage. This man's about to go down so hard the ground will crack. It was a Friday afternoon when Captain Voss walked into his office, sipping coffee, smug and calm. That's when U.S. Marshals and FBI agents burst through the door. He stood, trying to play confused. You have no... Darrell Voss, you are under arrest for conspiracy, evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and solicitation of murder. They cuffed him in front of his entire department. As they dragged him out, Celeste waited outside in the hallway, flanked by Camille, Mayor Green, and 2 federal agents. Voss locked eyes with her. You think you've won? Celeste rolled closer. No, I know I've changed the game. 2 weeks later, Celeste was sworn in as the head of Atlanta's new Civilian Oversight Tactical Review Board, a role created just for her. She wasn't a politician, she was a warrior who had been wronged, and decided to use her scars as fuel for change. In her first act of leadership, she reopened 128 misconduct cases, especially those involving disabled civilians and racial profiling. And she didn't stop there. She created a veteran-led rapid response team to assist during volatile police calls, trained in de-escalation, empathy, and strength. Real strength. The community showed up like never before. Celeste rolled into Latte and Soul 1 month to the day after the incident. Myra and Terrence ran over with smiles and a warm mug. This one's on the house, Terrence said, grinning. Celeste took a sip and looked out the same window where everything had started. She was still calm, still watching. But now, the city knew exactly who she was. Not just a veteran, not just a woman in a wheelchair, but a force. A commander. A storm they never saw coming. They thought they were arresting a nameless, faceless nobody in a wheelchair. They didn't know they were laying hands on a living legend, a battlefield ghost, a commander forged in war zones who'd bled for a country that forgot her, but who never forgot her people. They thought her silence was weakness. They thought her stillness meant surrender. But what they didn't know was that every second they doubted her, she was calculating, watching, planning. She didn't just fight back, she exposed the rot, she made the system kneel, and she reminded the world of a truth too many have forgotten. Respect isn't given, it's earned. And power? Real power? It doesn't always come in a uniform, sometimes it rolls in quiet. But when it moves, it shakes cities. This is A1 Storyteller, where we bring justice to the screen and truth to the people. If this story hits you in the soul, don't just watch, speak on it, like, share, and subscribe, because out here, we don't just tell stories. We tell the stories they hope you'll never hear. Stay sharp, stay loud, and remember, never underestimate a warrior in disguise. We'll see you in the next one.